Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending the webinar, Promote Your Community Like a Tech Startup. And what we're basically going to go over here is some of the things that we learned growing Townfolio across the country and internationally on some of the best practices that we have found to be very useful for economic development and how you guys may be able to take some of the learnings and tools that we use to promote your community better. So, we're just going to go over the agenda real quick. And we're basically going to go over what is startup life of section one. And that's just us telling you how, what the perception is of starting a startup is and how people have some ideas of it, but what it actually is. And in our case in particular. Section two, we're going to give you a quick background on what we do and how we work to give you context of how our technology works, and so you might understand where we're coming from. And then section three is we'll actually get into the actual good stuff, which has many other sections, like 3A, which is probably what you're most interested in listening for, and that's the tools to make your job easier. And 3B, where we start sharing some of the social media tips that we know and learn that you guys can use as well. And then finally 3C, which are the importance of networks and crowdsourcing. So we're going to start it off with what is startup life, and people have this perception that it's a lot of Mark Zuckerberg throwing cash around and being super successful, but that's really a small percentage of the startups in the ecosystem today. Only a few really do succeed, but we want to share what our life has been since we started this company about 2-3 years ago. So a lot of the pictures here that you see in the following slides are based on actual events. And we've changed the names, locations, just so we don't call out anyone in regards to this presentation. But this is a picture of me on the left and Riley Everson on the right, the two co-founders. So we normally like to say we are the $500 startup. We started this company with just about $500. It was just really to pay for some servers and endless amounts of time. But we bootstrapped this for the longest time just to get this thing off the ground. And we managed, with very little money, to grow our platform from one economic development professional to about over 500 today. A lot of people tend to laugh at us when we talk about our travel accommodation. So one of the biggest things for us is when we go to trade shows or conferences, we always have to buy facilities to stay at. We like to say we will always look for the cheapest, and sometimes the cheapest is a nice little tent. We have seriously looked at these, and it's always been a fun story to share on what kind of options we have, depending on where we go to, right? So this is always a fun joke that we like to joke around with when we share with customers. But on a more funny story, we actually stayed at this place here. This is which I will not name the city, but it was Airbnb. The pictures looked fantastic and amazing, but when we got in, we found out it was flooded. So it had a very damp feelings, or damp smell and a damp feeling to the house, and we stayed there for about almost a week. Wasn't exactly the best stay, and the location was questionable as well, given the type of people that were walking around. But we it was all good. But that's a warning for those who stay at Airbnbs. Be careful with where you stay at, because the pictures may not actually seem like the actual place. But with that said, this was at the exact same conference in the same city. We actually ended up borrowing a television for our booth from that Airbnb. I remember the story was that we called the Uber driver, and we said, just wait here for about 5 minutes. We're just going to pick some stuff up. And we did. We came up with a television. The guy probably thought we were robbing the place, but he basically said, I'm not going to ask any questions. We're good. And we took it to our trade show booth here, and we used it as a big display, which was very effective. So maybe that's a warning for any of you who have Airbnbs to maybe not rent out to a tech startup or Townfolio. The other thing that you have to do as a startup, though, is you have to enlist free labor. And in our case, we got our spouses to help out. The picture here is beautiful Kananaskis, and it was like the first conference we went, and the three girls you see in the picture are our significant others, respectively, and we got them to help out. We pitched it initially like, oh, you're gonna come out, enjoy the mountains, but it ended up turning into like a really hard work fest, where we were working pretty late at night just to get our conference going that we were sponsoring. So yeah, we enlist free labor as much as possible, but right now we have a team of 6, so it's not we don't have to do this as much anymore. The other joke we like to say is people think we're loaded with cash. Probably not. We actually have broke bank accounts. A lot of the times you get declined on things like this. And our social life is actually, quite non-existent. I probably see Riley way more than I see my own wife. So it's always a fun joke when we talk about the the exciting life of a startup. The other thing too is that our vehicle is literally our bicycle. It's great when it comes to impressing clients. Me and Riley take bikes and we try to bike to work as much as possible. Winters are a bit more challenging, but we try to take this bike path as much as we can to work, and it's been pretty effective and it reduced costs. The other funny thing is in terms of favorite food. This is mine in particular. I love the instant noodles from this brand called Nongshim. It's probably one of the best instant noodle brands. Highly recommend it. It's a bit spicy, but it is delicious, and it definitely helps reduce cost. The other thing that any startup would do too is take any free marketing, and this is a picture of Kevin O'Leary back in the day when he was trying to run for prime minister, and we got to pitch him. He was running to a conference, and we're like, "Hey, let's go up and talk to him and just get a picture because that's all we really need." We pitched him, but like it didn't really go anywhere. But the main goal was just to get a picture so we can get a lot of social media love, and it worked. So like I said, you'll do anything to get free marketing, get a famous person in a picture, and you'll probably get a ton of likes. So this is when we first started. Not that impressive at all. We out of our backyard, but in the past 2 years, we managed to grow this from like just 7 municipalities to over 500 across Canada. This map needs to be updated, though. Unfortunately, we do have some presence in the U.S. and internationally as well. But this is our coverage right now in terms of what we've done in terms of Townfolio. The other great thing is our metrics. We work with about 500 communities across Canada and internationally. The average time on site is about 5 minutes and 15 seconds, which is a long time compared to internet time, where it's normally like 5 seconds or less. We've tracked over 100 major companies using our platform through our analytics, and we've had a visitor base from people from over 100 countries. So I'm going to get into section 2, which is a quick background on us. This is a team photo of us at axe throwing when we are not doing that. But, we're going to keep this short. But basically, in a nutshell, what we do is we take stacks of paper, which usually has a ton of data, like building permits or stuff like that. And we take Excel files from everywhere, and other data sources like online portals. And we turn them into a free community profile that we add into our system to make it a lot more engaging and visually appealing to work with and manage to interpret data. But a lot of people ask, like, if you offer this free community profile, how do you guys make money? It's quite simple. We basically offer the option to embed our data directly onto your website. So here's an example of Sault Ste. Marie in Canada of our data embedded on their website, and we charge a yearly fee between $1,500 to $3,000 a year, depending on population. So if you're interested in learning more about that, contact me at the end of this presentation and we can talk more. But let's get into the bulk of our presentation right now, our webinar. This is in section 3, which is the good stuff. And these are tools that we think that you can use to promote your community like a tech startup because this is what we use. So let's get into the tools that we use to make your job easier. The first tool that we use is Slack. And the main goal of Slack for us is to improve communication. It's secure. A lot of organizations like NASA use this platform to communicate with your team, and we have multiple departments or even like a larger economic development team. It's great to have a centralized tool where you can communicate and talk to each other instead of having to go back and forth with emails, which can be quite cumbersome and annoying. Every tech startup that we know in our incubator here in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, uses this tool to communicate with each other, especially with a lot of people who go on who work remotely. But for us in particular, Riley and I, we travel to various conferences, and sometimes when we want to check up on our team, we just use Slack to see what's going on, and it's completely free too. So I highly recommend this tool for those wanting to improve the communication of your excuse me, of your department. The second tool that I'd like to talk about here, which I think you guys can use to help improve your time efficiency, is Calendly. And basically, what it is it connects to your calendar, whether you use Outlook or any other calendar like Google or anything else. And it connects to it and it shows your availabilities, so you can share people your calendar so they can book a time with you. And this is really effective because I'm sure some of you have run through the situation where you go back and forth in terms of like in emails of when was the last time you booked a meeting, or when was the last time you're available. Are you available at this time? They say no. Are you available at this time? And then you have like 2-3 emails just trying to confirm a time. This reduces that email clutter into one or two in just one email, and they just book a time, and then the Calendly will send them details of how to get in contact. The other thing that we get asked a lot is, what CRM do you use, or what do you think is the best CRM? This is very subjective because I don't think there is a best CRM for economic development. The the one that I see that is most popular with economic development organizations is Salesforce. They are the largest and probably the most feature robust. It is a bit of a beast to hack or to learn. But the one we use is HubSpot CRM. It is a big system, but it is free to use. So we use it quite a bit for our own purposes, and I mean it's quite integral in terms of how we manage our sales pipeline. So if you guys have leads or companies that you work with, and you're looking for a free CRM that doesn't cost money and it's quite robust, I highly recommend the HubSpot CRM system. The other thing that is really, really interesting is actually how do you make the analytics that you have today a bit more easier to comprehend and use. Like I imagine a lot of you probably have Google Analytics, but there are some other tools like Hotjar.com, which are free to use, and they can turn your you can add a script to your website, it's one line of code, and it'll basically turn your website into a visual way of tracking how people interact with your website. So they have this heat map tool where you can see how people interact with your website, where they click the most. Additionally, you have the option of combining. Oh no, no, they also have this feature where they could create like a recording of the average user of how they interact with your website. So it's really interesting how that works and how people use your website. So that's something that you can take away and to help improve, the analytics, to improve the user interaction of your website. So I highly recommend that. Um, there's this really cool tool called SPUD. I've seen it live. It's not cheap, unfortunately, but it's super cool. It's basically like a portable screen. So for those of you who go to trade shows quite a bit, and you know how cumbersome it is to bring all the equipment, and sometimes you wish you had a monitor that can like show a website of your community that makes it a bit more interactive, but it's not there. I highly recommend checking this out. It's a really cool tool. It's portable. It's created by some MIT people. I really want one just because we go to so many trade shows, and it's a really annoying to have to bring monitors with us. So this will make it a much more portable way, and it seems more innovative. So definitely check it out. It's called SPUD, and you can see the link on the bottom there. There's this other tool that I didn't mention in this webinar. I don't have a slide for it, but I will for the next one. Is something called DataBox. You know, as I was talking about analytics, I was just thinking about it. You know, sometimes when you look at Google Analytics, it is like really confusing to look at. Well, there's this free tool called databox.com or .io, whatever it is. You can link up your Google Analytics and make it so much easier to consume your information to see how many website visitors are coming to your website and whatnot. I'll get that slide in there, and it's easy to connect, and you can use that going forward to see how your website performs over time. The other thing here is I wanted to talk about engaging social media posts. Some people post really nice visual posts just because people are more visual as opposed to text heavy. So if you're looking for a free tool to do that, I highly recommend pablo.buffer.com. Buffer is the company that produces this. They have a lot of high quality stock images you can use and add some kind of like quotes in the background to make it more engaging with people. It's a pretty cool tool, so I highly recommend checking it out to make it more make your social media a bit more interesting. Another question I get asked a lot is what kind of web icons do you use? So there's a bunch of free web icons out there today that are pretty interesting to make your website more popular. This is a new design trend in the internet. You can see it in Dropbox where they have illustrations as opposed to actual pictures. If you guys are interested in adding stuff like that on your website, I highly recommend this website, streamlineicons.com/UX. It's free. You can use it for commercial use, and we use it occasionally for some of our content. This is a really popular one that I get asked a lot about is free stock photos. So unsplash.com offers high definitions free stock photos that you can use for commercial use. Highly recommend this site. I know some of you probably pay a lot of money to get high quality stock photos. Well, guess what? You don't have to going forward anymore. You can just go to unsplash.com. Their library continues to grow every week. So there's more and more pictures. When I first looked at this last year, there wasn't a lot, but it's more than doubled or tripled with new images that you can use. So highly recommend checking this out. It's a really useful tool. I just want to put this in there more for humor, but like if you guys do want to use animated images or GIFs for your social media, highly recommend using Giphy. It's a free platform to get free images to use for social media, but I will say it's a bit rated R at times, so be careful what you search for. The other thing that's great, I get asked occasionally is, what kind of free animation videos do you have? Like we want to make explainer video, but not spend a ton of money on it. Is there any like do-it-yourself tools? So there's this great platform called Biteable.com where you can basically create free animated videos by putting high quality stock clips together to come up with a little explainer video, whether it's animated or live for your own video. So I highly recommend checking this out. It's a pretty cool platform to use. I've seen some companies use it just to get something out quick. And if you guys are on a tight budget, you might want to try something as well. The other thing that has been super effective for our website and content is free live chat. Highly recommend getting this on your website. It's free to use, and basically you have the ability to allow users to interact with your website and whatnot. Some people tend to ask me though, like, do people expect a response right away? Yeah, I will say it's better if you can respond right away, but if you don't respond right away, they give you an option to leave your email, which you can kind of see in the left-hand side here. And that's usually good enough because then you can get back to them afterwards. But it is always good to respond right away, especially if it's a common question or like a data question. But there's one thing that's great about this. If you wanted to upgrade to this, they have an automated bot that can answer on your behalf, assuming you have some typical questions that are redundant and can be trained by a robot. So that's always something to consider if you want to upgrade. It's not that expensive from the last time I looked at it, but I highly recommend getting the free chat tool on your system. It's really easy to implement and it's super effective. So let's move on to section 3B now, which is, let's talk about the social media tips that you can use and use for your website today. So before we get into it, I want to talk about the best social media channel. So this is a survey done by DCI, which is a large consultancy in the US that works with a lot of economic development organizations. And they surveyed about 300 site selectors across the US or North America on what kind of social media channels are best used for business. And by far, without a doubt, LinkedIn is the most popular for corporate executives and location advisors. And I could definitely vouch for that. We found LinkedIn to be the best vehicle for us to do business, just to have conversations with people. And a lot of the tech startups are actually asked if you have a LinkedIn, and a lot of them use them as resumes instead as well. So highly recommend, if you're going to focus on any social media channel for your community promotion, I'd say LinkedIn's the best bet. But I wanted to point out is that, if you break it down by age groups, outside of LinkedIn being the most popular, what's really popular with the under 39 group is Facebook. Now, I'm not saying you should use Facebook as like a marketing channel, because I know a lot of residential people would use Facebook for complaining and whatnot, but it is a pretty good audience to target if you're going after the under 39s, just to get those corporate executives or site selectors a bit more familiar. You can do that through some very interesting remarketing tactics, which I'll go into briefly a bit later on. But again, without a doubt, LinkedIn is your best bet, and Facebook just for a certain demographic. So I want to talk about LinkedIn a bit more in depth right now. The reason we love LinkedIn is we found that people are very much engaged, especially on a professional level, and it helps build your brand as a leader in the space. So in the middle here, Riley, my co-founder, posted a question, kind of like wondering if everyone has advice on top hacks to drive traffic to your trade show booth. And we usually post stuff like this, and just to get feedback, just get people engaged, interacting with your content, and it helps promote your brand and whatnot. And it's always interesting to see what other people do as well. For us in this particular type of thing, we always bring something from the prairies. We're based out of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, with us on any trade show we go to. So, like we always say, you can win dill pickle vodka, which looks terrible, tastes terrible by itself, but it works great in a Caesar or Bloody Mary. So I highly recommend, if you ever do trade show booths, try to bring something local, and like local breweries seem to be a very popular thing. So I highly recommend, if you guys do that, it make you guys look good, and it also helps support your local economy and your community as well. The other thing on the far left, the far right, is, if you ever get a picture with like a high profile individual, in my case, the governor, Scott Walker from Wisconsin, it helps drive traffic to your posts and to your community brand or the economic development personalist brand. So I highly recommend doing that, as it helps bring brand awareness, kind of like what we did with Kevin O'Leary before. And what's funny here is on the left-hand side, this is Jennifer from LinkedIn. She's one of the senior government leads there. And she made this post with my co-founder, Riley, on a time they met in person. And she is awesome. And she was actually like upfront. She was like, I'll go to events anywhere in the world, not really to go to like, listen to the content. She goes there to take a picture. And the main goal, she takes that picture and then she posts it on LinkedIn, her social media, and it helps build her brand as a leader in whatever space. And you can do this whether for yourself as an economic development professional or for your community, because it helps build a better brand. And I highly recommend going down this path. So if you look up her LinkedIn on her profile on LinkedIn, you'll probably see what I mean. And you can probably do some learnings in terms of how to make some engaging posts for your community. Now, if you're looking for really good content on Twitter, I highly recommend going and checking out this organization called Engaging Local Government Leaders, ELGL. They are a nonprofit based out of the US, and they do a ton of interesting content that keeps young people engaged with government. They have this thing called City Hall Selfie. So I highly recommend, if you guys are going to do something like this, do a City Hall selfie for your own community, post it on your social media, and they will retweet it, and then you'll get access to a bunch of new followers. So, or a bunch of a whole new audience for your community. So I highly recommend, if you're looking for really interesting, creative ways to improve your social media, highly recommend checking out ELGL. I think they're probably the leader in social media posts for government today. Um, the other thing that we found to be super popular with social media posts is promoting investment opportunities on your community. Like, if you're looking to attract a coffee shop or a franchise, literally say it on your social media, and you'll be surprised by the amount of people who get engaged with that content, because it speaks to a larger audience. They'll be like, oh, this is really interesting. And then they'll be like, why does X community want to attract a coffee shop franchise or something like that? And then it'll bring more awareness to your community. So I highly recommend trying out this strategy. If you do, let us know. We'll retweet it through our channels as well. The other cool thing about, like, I mentioned before, like Facebook, if you're looking to advertise on Facebook and targeting under 39 age group, you can definitely do that with Facebook, thanks to its super targeted, creepy information on all of us. Kind of like that whole Cambridge Analytica thing. I wouldn't say we went anything to that extent, but like it's astonishing how targeted you can get with your marketing campaign. So if you look at our on the far left here, our audience definition, our ad will target people exactly between the ages of 21 and 30 inclusively, and who live in Canada, and who often search for search engine marketing, search engine optimization, blah, blah, blah. They do this because if you have a Facebook account and you're logged in, they also track what you're looking at, and then they know what to target specific ads at you. So which goes into this whole concept of remarketing, right? It's really easy to do. All you have to do is add a pixel, a line of code onto your website, and if a person ever lands on your website, you can start remarketing towards them. And a lot of people think you have to spend a ton of money doing this, and the reality is you don't. You can only like, for us, we spend maybe anywhere between 100 to 250 a month. Yeah, and that's right, $100 between $250 a month on remarketing. And this can turn into a whole different webinar that we can do down the road on how we remarket ads to our prospective customers. It's super cheap, and it doesn't take a lot to set up. A little bit of learning up front, but it's actually really easy to do once you get the hang of it. But super effective. People always come up to us saying like, "Wow, Townfolio is really advertising like crazy," and we're like, "No, not really. We aren't really doing anything that makes it rocket science or anything like that." The other thing too that a lot of people ask is, how do I target tech startups? Well, you kind of got to hang out where they hang out. In the US, ycombinatornews.com is a very popular one. It's basically a forum where they have tech startups just posting random things, and they make comments on the interesting initiatives going on in technology. So if you want to just start reading it, and if you see something that might be interesting and relevant to your community, I highly recommend you try going on there and posting. So now I'm going to get into our final section here, which is section 3C, and this is talking about the concept and importance of networks and crowdsourcing. So why network? I mean, a network today, you go on to these various applications. If you go on like Airbnb, you're looking for a place to stay or rent. Networks make it easier to consume the vast amounts of information going on the internet today. And I kind of want to break this down into a history lesson on how this works. So back in the day when I was learning how to code, the first generation is basically, you start with the HTML and CSS. You create a very static website that's really simple to use and navigate. But what ended up happening is, in the second generation, they're like, how do I make this static website more engaging, more easier to program? And they started using languages like PHP or Python or Ruby to basically make websites a bit more dynamic, so you can add more content and make it a much more bigger application. And then finally, what happened after that is like, how do I make websites not just exclusive to programmers, but to the average person? And then you started seeing stuff like content management systems, which is what's really popular today. That's like WordPress or Joomla, those kind of things where anyone can go online and set up their own personal website. But what's really exploded in the past many years, 5 years, is the concept of network applications. And that's basically like Facebook, LinkedIn, Airbnb, Kijiji, blah, blah, blah. It goes on. And the idea is that you go to particular applications to basically find particular information. And this is a huge evolution from just a normal website, and it's becoming the way of the future where people access information that they want. I think what I didn't list on here, but I should. Is where I think the fifth generation right now is moving towards too, and that's artificial intelligence and machine learning. It's because what's happening is with these applications, these network applications, is that they're producing vast amounts of data, and that vast amounts of data can now be applied to machine learning. And machine learning has always been around for a very long time. It's been around since, I'd argue, since the first generation. But the problem is that there's such mathematical heavy formulas that the only way for them to actually work properly and to predict anything is to have vast amounts of data. And network applications allow that. And now you can take that data and put it through these formulas going forward. But what I want to talk about is what I've seen economic development and where I see it primarily stuck in right now. And that's in the third generation, which is a lot of content management systems. And the reason I say that is I see a lot of websites that say like invest in X community or choose X community for .c or .com. And the idea is to go to these websites to find all the economic development information you need, which I think is great. And I think that there's a lot of good content that you can add on there to really showcase your brand. But it is a bit challenging because at the end of the day, if you search like the city of Saskatoon, the economic development website is not normally going to be the very first one. It's going to be the municipal one that shows up. So having individual silo websites, although great from a content perspective and marketing perspective, does prove some challenges from an SEO perspective or brand or from getting people to visit your website perspective. But at the end of the day, I think they're useful, especially if you go on trade missions. You can point them to the particular website. So if you're talking to a lead, you can say just go to investwhatever.com. But I do think it needs to move more towards a network application going forward. And that kind of goes to the whole concept. You go to Tinder to find love, you go to Uber to rent a car or find a car ride, and you go to Airbnb to find a place to stay. And the goal with Townfolio is that you would go to Townfolio to find investment opportunities in these communities. And we're starting to do that with our platform Townfolio, where we offer free community profiles, but we just launched this other site that's in beta called Main Street, where you can go and list investment opportunities that will get listed on our platform, and then basically help promote some interesting opportunities that might exist and allow people to search for it. Here's an example of Prince George adding a new restaurant space that just is available in a new Marriott hotel development that they're looking to attract. So highly recommend checking this out. It's free to use, and you can list your platform or real estate or business opportunity that you're looking to get notice on a platform. The other thing that's really cool and interesting to check out is this company and based out of Montreal, Canada, and Quebec. It's called Potluck, and what they do is they help crowdsource information from various people on what type of store do you want to see open up in your community. So what they'll do is they have a free solution, but they also have a paid solution where basically they'll run campaigns through social media in your community, and that will say something like this: choose your next retailer and you can win $500 if you fill out the survey. It always gets people to fill out, and they usually get a lot of responses. As you can see right here, they had 147 shares on this stuff. So what's great then is that you can then take that data once you have the data and go to a retailer or a company, say, hey, there's huge demand for you to open up a retailer in here. We have about X amount of people that said they would go and shop at this store if you were to open up in your community. So I highly recommend checking this out. It's a really interesting concept of crowdsourcing from your community. on what they would like to see open up in your community, and then they turn it into actual data that you can take to meet with companies with. The other great company that we like to work with is Pinpoint. A lot of people talk about, why are you ever going to get in GIS maps, Townfolio? We say no because there's a lot of great solutions out there today that do that. Pinpoint's a great one. It costs like $100 a month or so, approximately, where you can access a very robust GIS map. And they also work with a lot of retailers out there today. So highly recommend checking this out. It's a pretty cool platform. They're a graduate of Y Combinator, which is one of the top US accelerators out there today. Another question that we get asked a lot is like, is there a better way for me to list real estate on my website? So site selectors or companies or entrepreneurs can find what's available. I will be honest, like the best source out there today will be MLS. And that really depends on if you have, whether you have a good relationship with your broker, or commercial broker to get that information. And B, if you somehow can work with MLS, which is not the easiest. But with that said, I think the best alternative in Canada is a platform called Spaceless, where you can they'll offer this embed onto your website through Townfolio for free. So if you're interested in that, let me know and we can introduce you to them. They have like some real estate listings on there, but they're probably stronger in larger cities as opposed to smaller communities. So I think the best bet still is MLS. We're trying to work on something with them today, but we'll keep you posted on that when time comes. So, you know what? In summary, what I wanted to bring out is that although I've outlined all of these digital tools that you can use to improve workflows and productivity, at the end of the day, digital tools or doing anything digitally does not trump face-to-face meetings. If you guys have ever talked to a company, at the end of the day, it's all about relationship building. So it's really important to have those face-to-face meetings with people and get out there and meet people. A lot of the tools I mentioned, though, are killing emails, phone calls, and freeing up your budget. So, you know, I really don't think, I think what a lot of people in government can do is reduce a lot of the unnecessary workflows to improve their productivity and focus on what economic developers do best, and is talk to people and sell their community, get them to know what's going on in their community, and just getting the word out there. And the third point is that, if you're savvy with tech just a little bit, you can hack marketing with a very tiny budget. And maybe that's something we do at Townfolio here, where we can create another webinar to show you guys how you can do the same with what we do and without having to spend tens of thousands of dollars to do so. And finally, networks and crowdsourcing are the way of the future, especially with the accessible way technology makes very accessible for all of us to get information. Highly recommend checking that out and trying some of the networks and platforms that we mentioned today. So at the end of the day, thank you for taking the time to listen to our webinar. I really appreciate you taking the time to do so. If you have any questions or anything like that, you can ask them right now, or alternatively, send me an email directly, and I can answer those. Additionally, if you guys want like a cleaner list of the tools I mentioned in this presentation, along with some of the platforms, send me an email right away, and I can send that information over to you in a nice, friendly PDF format that you can start using it potentially for your own community and improve your own workflow and marketing. But with that said, I want to say thank you for taking the time to listen to our webinar. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.